Hey there, welcome to Someone's Gotta Make It. On this show, we're talking to the founders and leaders behind businesses that make products you use all the time. You encounter them in your daily lives. You walk on them. You sleep under them. They're floating around in your body. And we're going to talk about how they overcame the growing pains of building their businesses from scratch. And what I learned was these challenges they're struggling with, they're the same challenges we all struggle with when building a business. And they found practical ways of overcoming those challenges. So if you're building something your own right now, you're going to want to listen up. My name is Ben Goldstein. I'm the VP of Marketing at Nutshell. Nutshell is a CRM and email marketing platform. We help thousands of businesses around the world get organized and automate the small stuff so they can focus on what really matters, which is building stronger relationships with their buyers. On this episode, grab some wet naps, folks, because we are talking barbecue sauce. My guest is Tracey Richardson. Tracey is the co-founder and CEO of Lilies of Charleston, and Lilies of Charleston makes hot sauces, barbecue sauces, and seasoning mixes, and all their products are directly inspired by Tracey's father's recipes. He had a restaurant in Charleston called the Rib Shack. His customers couldn't get enough of his sauces, so Tracey and her sister Kelly saw an opportunity and started selling those great sauces to a wider audience. You know, it's a wonderful family story, but every story needs some drama and some adversity, right? So Tracey and I are going to spend some time talking about competition. What's it like to be a new food brand competing against mega brands at the grocery store? How do you survive when you only have a fraction of the resources of the market leader? And how do you create superfans? How do you create a rabid following in a noisy market? I can tell you that this topic really resonated with me personally. Maybe you can relate to it too. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Tracey Richardson of Lilies of Charleston. Enjoy. Hi, Tracey. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Ben. It's nice to be here.
What was the original vision for your company? What did you and your sister want to accomplish or grow this into?
I think originally when we started, we really wanted to pay homage to all that my dad had accomplished in the restaurant. And we really singularly envisioned selling our products to specialty stores and hopefully getting picked up maybe like a big grocery store. And what ended up happening is pretty early on, we got picked up by food service company, Cisco in particular. And they picked us up, and there were a couple of local chains, regional chains that actually ended up national that picked us up as their mustard barbecue sauce to use in their restaurants.
Did the original vision, has that changed at all in the past 20 years? Did you shift your focus dramatically from food shops to more food service?
Oh, quite a bit, yes. Yeah. It shifted because of a couple of different things. First, it shifted because somebody came knocking on our door. We ended up in food service. Then it shifted because of something called the pandemic. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it.
Heard of it.
So that actually ended up shifting our business a little bit. So yeah, we shifted over a couple of different times.
Your father started his restaurant, the Rib Shack, back in 1985. What did you learn from growing up around that business?
Honestly, to not start a restaurant.
Oh, really? Why is that?
No, I say that jokingly, but half serious too, because restaurants are a tremendous amount of work and you're kind of tied down to the restaurant. We found out that people really enjoyed the sauces and the spices. And we had several of us, my sister, myself, my husband, we all had CPG experience. So we really knew early on that was a viable option. And that's the route we took. We knew we could piggyback on also barbecue circuit, mustard barbecue being a really iconic thing that's unique to South Carolina. That's what we learned early on. And that's the direction we took. And like I said, we ended up in a couple of different additional avenues, I'll say. So we ended up with several other revenue generators as well.
Were you already an expert in sauces and spices even back then, or was there a learning curve involved?
Oh, no, definitely a learning curve. My husband has a background in research and development chemistry, so he knew how to scale and to figure out how to write the recipes so that we could have a co-packer. And we worked with somebody locally when we first started who helped us with understanding the pricing, understanding the dynamics of what the process is. The way you make it in their kitchen at home is a little different than the way they were going to make it in a manufacturing facility. That was definitely just a little bit of a learning curve. But we ended up finding out it was actually cheaper to have somebody else make it than for us to make it.
I'm not going to ask you to reveal any trade secrets, but from a high level, How is barbecue sauce made? What are the steps involved?
It involves a lot of different raw ingredients, obvious things like tomato-based barbecue. You start with like tomatoes or a ketchup base, like a basic ketchup, and then you add your spices and your seasonings. Some people use whiskey. It's just like any other kind of sauce that you make at home. And obviously ours starts with mustard.
I've never made a sauce at home, so the question I'm curious about is like, how does a sauce get that saucy consistency? Is it the molasses? It's got to be the molasses, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Across the country, there's vinegar-based sauces. So like a vinegar-based barbecue will be a little bit more, have more tart flavor. It'll be a little more liquidy. With the low country, ours is more of a sweet, smoky. So like you said, that molasses and sugar caramelizes and makes it a lot thicker of a base.
What were the first signs of success for Lilies of Charleston? So when did you realize that, this thing could actually work?
When we first started selling, like I said, Charleston's a huge tourist attraction. And so downtown, there's a marketplace where it's basically open air stands and people have like little shops. And we were selling it in the shops. And then also some of the restaurants might have like our hot sauce in particular on the table. And we were getting calls from people all over the country like, oh, I bought it because it said Charleston on it and I wanted to give it as a gift. But then I tasted it and I was like, oh, we got to buy some more of this. So I think having tourists contact us and saying, this is like the best sauce we've ever had. And I can't find mustard barbecue in California. That's when we really were like, ooh, aha.
By the way, who was Lillie of Charleston?
So Lilies is my great aunt. My story, I'll give you a little bit more background about how we got started. As you know, it started from my dad's recipes, but growing up, he spent a lot of time with his great aunt Lillie, which is his mom's sister. And they spent a lot of time in the kitchen cooking because she migrated from Charleston to Philadelphia when she got married. And then when my dad was in the service, he was stationed at Fort Dix in New Jersey, and we spent all our Sunday dinners with her. She was kind of the surrogate grandmother of the North, and we spent so much time, my dad when he was growing up, and then when we were growing up, we spent time with her. We just naturally migrated to naming it after Lilies. So that's how we got Lilies of Charleston, because we wanted to make sure we had that Charleston tie too.
Tell me a little about your typical buyers today. So who specifically are you selling to, and how do you reach them?
There's several different channels. So we have, again, food service, which makes a large percentage of our sales. We have retailers, which both grocery store and specialty markets across the country. And then we do digital, which is mainly on Amazon. And then we do subscription companies that buy our products and use them for their subscription bases. And then we have a corporate client base too, where during COVID, we introduced a gift box, was like a test seller kit where you'd get 3 of our products in a nice little gift box. And it sold really well on Amazon we sold out actually. First year we introduced it for Father's Day. And so we introduced it into the corporate market too.
You had mentioned the pandemic before and in this gift box you started selling during COVID. Was the increase in digital sales enough to make up for anything you'd lost to, restaurant sales because of the pandemic? Did things sort of wash out in your favor? Or was it a struggle losing certain revenue sources?
That was the surprising thing, because like I said, food service was like our large percentage of our revenue. And then during COVID, because of all the supply chain issues and also because of restaurants being closed, we increased retail sales that got picked up as well as Amazon. That was like a huge percentage of what kind of kept us afloat.
I wanted to talk about one of the biggest challenges that a lot of independent small business owners face, which is competing against really big, really well-established competitors. So let's take it from the top. You launched this new company in 2001. You needed to get your product on shelves in grocery stores, specialty stores. There's already a lot of competition for shelf space. How did you go about doing that, getting your product on shelves to begin with?
That was a really tough struggle initially. In 2001, we were 100% natural, low in sodium, which is unique, lots of flavor, kind of a unique condiment. The market wasn't really, that trend wasn't popular. Fast forward to 10, 15 years later, we got a lot more play and a lot more distribution because we're woman-owned, minority-owned, 100% natural. There's all these new trends because we stayed in the market really helped us to explode down the line. We had a great surge when we first started, plateaued and tapered off, and then boom, another explosion. So I think it's a constant struggle. Distribution is always a struggle, frankly, large companies as well as big companies. And now the distributions struggle because of supply chain. It never goes away, but there are always this sort of peaks and valleys in the marketplace.
I mean, distribution's a struggle. Awareness also has to be a struggle. How does an independent brand compete against these companies with large marketing budgets and established brand names? How do you carve out a piece of the market to begin with when, not a lot of people know your name?
A lot of PR. Being able to have that unique story we tell about our culture, because a lot of the names that we come up with are Southern-based. They're also Gullah Geechee based. Being able to talk about the whole family history, being able to talk about how our products are natural, they're low in sodium, they're healthy attributes, have a lot of flavor. It's basically being able to tell that story over and over again and being consistent. We started in 2001. That was the story we told. And now fast forward, oh my God, that's a great story. Now people want to hear more about it because they're interested in small businesses. They're interested in healthy trends. They're interested in women. There's just all these things that are really hitting really key points with the marketplace.
Did you hire a PR agency to help you with that stuff, or were these more like bootstrapped PR efforts?
Bootstrapped, yeah.
Okay.
Mostly bootstrapped.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. That's why it took 20 years. 20-year overnight success.
Right, of course. Another one of the elements that gives big brands an edge is what they call economies of scale. So they can produce huge quantities of product that reduces their cost of production. Usually that savings, hopefully, is passed on to the consumer. So how do you deal with not having that advantage?
We started working not too long ago with larger distributors that could help and guide us, being part of sort of executive training programs, accelerator programs. We take a percentage of our revenue and put it back into doing sales promotions. Each avenue has a different marketing strategy that you have to take up. With retail, there's a lot smaller margins, so you obviously have to invest back into, like I said, when you put it on the shelf at a Harris Teeter or a Publix, during barbecue season, we give a percentage off or 25 cents off, something like that. Working with the broker, working with the distributor that can help you get your logistics under control and being able to help you get outside of your region. There's just a lot of different avenues. You have to pay yourself back and invest in the company.
Does competing against big brands affect your pricing strategy in any way? I'm very unfamiliar with pricing strategy for consumer packaged goods. How do you approach that challenge?
Yes, it does. It's really difficult. The best way to look at it is don't try to compete with a large company that has like 15 SKUs in your category, because the idea is you are a niche product. You are a specialty product, and people are looking for that. If you're having a backyard barbecue and you've got to feed 100 people, you're going to buy that Costco product,
right.
That
jug of Casey Masterpiece and
exactly. But you can get per the gallons. Right. But guess what? You're doctoring that up. But when you get ready to have your own family barbecue, then you're like, okay, Lilies is going to be invited to the party.
Ah, yeah, absolutely. So for those specialty brands, is the key to victory here to sell a little bit of your product to lots of people, or is it more important to sell frequently to a small dedicated fan base?
It's a little bit of both. We're in Publix and Harris Teeter and Lowe's Food, Central Market, Fresh Market. I mean, there's a lot of different Hy-Vee, chains. So we sell a little bit. We have a smaller shelf profile. And so we sell a little bit, but we sell it to a lot more places. And then, there's the specialty markets where you're going to sell a lot, but it's piecemeal because you're going to be in California, you're going to be in Texas. You're selling to a lot of different specialty markets all over the country.
I wonder if you have any advice in terms of like building that sort of cult following, if there's anything you've done to create superfans for your brand that's actually worked.
I think social media is one of them. Social media and just being really, relevant or being being visible. That's the word I'm looking for. Being really visible in your own region. I keep harping on this, but it's really key that Charleston is a tourist area and that people are here and then they come. We're like everywhere they look. That helps to build that cult following. And then following it up with social media. And then we've gotten lucky. We've been on the Today Show and we've gotten some really good, big PR. So that definitely helps.
Not all smaller specialty brands can survive against bigger competition.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like things have worked out for you and your company, but is there anything that would have convinced you in the early days that building a brand like yours was impossible and you needed to get out?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know what would have convinced me because, like I said, we've been in the game for 20 years. It's not been like we've been at the top of the game for that whole 20 years. It's a slow and steady race and being able to just maintain your consistency. I didn't work this full time the whole 20 years. I had other jobs and had to pay student loans. People say this all the time, but you really have to love what you do. You have to have a really strong connection or faith that like, okay, I'm going to make this happen and it's going to happen one day. It might not be tomorrow. There's pitfalls, but you got to get back up and do it again and try. I think it's just a slow, steady, consistent build and staying in the game as long as you can.
That's a good message. We've been talking about competing against the big dogs in the industry, but there's dozens, I'm sure, of specialty sauce and spice brands that you're also competing against at the same time, these other boutique brands. What are some of the unique challenges that presents, or do you just not think about them as much?
No, you're always thinking about it, but you have to come up with unique ways in which you can carve out a niche for yourself. I take hot sauce, for example. People are always like, oh, how many hot sauces can there be? There's like thousands of hot sauces and there's thousands coming up every day. So you can't really worry about, oh, can I get everybody to like my hot sauce? That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But you get a consistent following and then, you come up with some type of new flavor variety or you introduce a new recipe in which way to use it. You just have to constantly figure out ways in which you can be relevant, but also surprise your customers and build on new customers that might say, oh, yeah, I didn't think that I could put it on my eggs. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Now you got me thinking. I should have had lunch before I did this. Is there any other advice that you can give to entrepreneurs listening to this who have a product they really believe in, but they're in a really competitive market? What would you tell that person?
So if you're in a really competitive market and you want to start a brand, you just got to leap out on faith. I think there's always room in the market for more. How many computers are there? It's like, how many t-shirts are there? And there's certain things that are just a commodity item, but that doesn't mean that you can't introduce a new one. I would say that the best way to do it is to build a strong brand, like start off with a design company who can help you build a visual story for your brand. Come up with your own backstory. Make sure you have what is it you want this sauce or your product or whatever it is to be able to do? What problem are you going to also solve? Those are the things that you put together a strong message and story and then back it with a really strong design. And I think you go for it.
What's the future of Lilies of Charleston look like? Do you have any plans to enter new markets in the future or create new product lines?
Yes. One of the things that we are introducing now is popcorn. We were at one of the shows here in Charleston is called SeaWe. It's the Southeastern Wildlife Expo. And a couple years ago, we needed to figure out there's 40,000 plus people that come to the show. And we were like, okay, there's no way we can make that much chicken, so for taste testing. And so we were like, okay, how are we going to sample our new spices? And we thought about popcorn. It was such a huge hit that we were like, oh, like light bulb moment, we need to put our spices on popcorn. And so it's one of the best ways we use to also sample when we go to do presentations. And people, every time we do it, people lose their minds over the flavored popcorn, Who knew popcorn was such a huge snack? So yeah, we're introducing popcorn. We have plans to probably do our spices on some other snack items. And then obviously we've got new sauces and some additional spices that we'll be introducing.
The popcorn thing's really interesting. These are sauces for barbecued meat, but like putting it in a totally different context, suddenly there's a different person who might purchase that product. Or you can eat at a different time when you're just in your car and not at a picnic table, for example. So that's pretty cool. If you could go back to day one of Lilies of Charleston, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself that could have saved you a lot of time, money, or effort?
Probably two things. Starting off, like I said earlier, is starting off with a design company or a branding company that could have helped us build a strong identity from day one. We, as a result of starting our own, we changed our label or our logo probably 2 or 3 different times. And the strongest one is the one we have now, that company out of Arkansas called Bold Strategies helped us design it.
Encountering your brand for the first time, I was like, this looks amazing. Right. They really got their branding locked down. Like, how long did it take for you to get to that point?
We redesigned our brand about 4 or 5 years ago. And you could tell, that it was tremendous. We already had the story. We took the old brand and there were components of it that we kept. And they came up with that great designer named Justin who came up with how do we incorporate all the little pieces that we used for our branding and put it together to make one single logo that was encompassed in a circle, incorporating the sweetgrass basket around the edges of the labels. They did a phenomenal job on helping us redesign our branding that's why I say if you take that from the beginning and invest it, it helped us transition from the spices, from the sauces, and now to the popcorn. That same brand is consistent across the board for the several different lines of products that we're producing. We use it in the food service, it really, a good branding that you invest early on can take you to many different avenues, regardless of the type of products that you introduced.
So for the first 16 years of the company, you were just changing logos and designs, and who was doing that for you? Must feel like a chaotic process.
Yeah, it was tough. I have an art background, so I designed our original label.
Okay.
And then when you start in your kitchen, your labels are something that you do based on an art program you pull up on Google.
Exactly.
So, you do some photography or you do some, little things. And then we got to a point where we incorporated the Lillie for my Aunt Lillie and then a sweetgrass basket and then the script for Lilies of Charleston. We already had a slogan, "May you never feel unwanted, unloved, or hungry." So that was on it. But like I said, Bold was able to say, okay, you've got the story. Tell us what it is. What's your vision? And then they put it all together. And it just automatically tells the story when you look at it.
So hire a design firm. I think that's super good advice for any CPG company especially.
Yeah. And then the second thing I would say is make sure you get your company trademarked, your logo and whatever you can trademarked.
Did you not do that at first?
We did not. We only had our state. It had it internally trademarked, but the state, but like a national trademark it makes a tremendous difference.
In what way? What did you run into not nationally trademarking the brand at first?
It doesn't prevent us from selling, but when we got ready to do like a page on Amazon for our own specialty products, you have to have a trademarked logo or trademark name so that they know that nobody can pirate your product or pirate your page. So there's certain, I would say more like digital aspects that becomes something important.
All right, last question. Let's say you're at a party and you want to impress people with a piece of trivia about barbecue sauces or barbecue in general. What fun fact do you dig out?
Oh, gosh. Now I have to think about that. I'm not good at trivia. Let me see. What's a good, fun trivia?
You can also just give me a tip about making barbecue. I know nothing when it comes to smokers or anything, so fire away.
A nice fun fact you can use, I'll say a nice tip about Lilies of Charleston barbecue, because it's mustard based. I always tell people it's versatile. So you could do what we call a mashup. So if you do 50% barbecue sauce, let's just say our Have Mussy, because you like hot mustard. Do 50% Have Mussy and then do 50% of mayonnaise. Now you have a sandwich spread, and that mayonnaise helps cool down some of the heat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So let's just say you are making a turkey sandwich after Thanksgiving, right? And you love the mustard barbecue because, of course, Ben, we know you love our Have Mussy mustard barbecue sauce.
It's my favorite.
So what you do is take 2 tablespoons of the mustard barbecue and like 1 or 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, mix it together, and then you got a spread for your sandwiches.
Tracey, the day after Thanksgiving is already planned out for me. This is what I'm doing. It sounds delicious. Thank you for that tip. No, man, I got to go eat something now. Thanks so much for being here, Tracey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you today, Ben. I had a great time.
So that was my conversation with Tracey Richardson. Thanks so much to Tracey for being here. Again, I'm Ben Goldstein. I'm the VP of Marketing at Nutshell. Nutshell is a simple and affordable CRM that helps thousands of B2B organizations around the world get organized. We know if you're a small business owner, there's a point where Google Docs and spreadsheets just don't cut it anymore. That's where we come in. We help B2B organizations get off spreadsheets and start tracking their contacts and leads so they can drive more revenue. Every Nutshell subscription comes with unlimited contact and data storage and live access to our friendly Michigan-based support team, starting at just $16 a month. Visit nutshell.com to start a 14-day free trial and use the coupon code POD20 when you purchase to get 20% off your first year's subscription. That's all for now. Special thanks to our executive producer, Seth Ressler at Community Marketing Revolution. Thanks to my co-producer, Ashante Clemens. And thank you for listening. Thanks so much. Until next time.